Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of JBM Global School, I, Ashish,
Hi, Lakshya.
And I, Dipansha.
welcome you all, the parents and students, to today's webinar, an interactive session with our esteemed guest. The coronavirus and the unprecedented measure to contain its spread are disrupting near every aspect of a child's life: his health, his development, his behavior, his family's economic security, and finally, his mental health. Dear parents and students, high levels of stress and isolation can affect brain development, sometimes with irreversible and irreparable long-term consequences. It's high time we must act to gather and mobilize public and private resources to support the mental and psychological well-being of the world's most valuable and most vulnerable children at this extraordinary time. Dear parents, it gives us immense pleasure to announce that the clinical psychologist heading the school mental health program, Fortis, Dr. Mimansa Singh is already online with us. We welcome you, ma'am.
It's a matter of great pride that Dr. Mimansa Singh has accepted our invitation to be with us this morning, in spite of a busy schedule. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am. I'll rather say we are obliged by your presence. We hope all of us are able to seek guidance and imbibe knowledge from you.
Ma'am, you're a clinical psychologist with the Department of Mental Health Behavioral Sciences, Fortis Healthcare. You are a cognitive behavioral therapist working in the clinical space using evidence based treatments with adolescents, with parents, with couples, and with families. After completing your MPhil in clinical psychology, you have been dedicatedly working to enhance mental health for children. As the lead clinical psychologist, you are providing clinical supervision and assistance to psychologists to enhance therapeutic care. You are also heading the Fortis School Mental Health Program with a sense of passion for enhancing the mental health in children. You have a keen interest in improving the skills and well being of adults who work with children. Ma'am, you have been actively engaged with schools, with leading NGOs, and with corporates, even co authoring a number of popular books, and active engagement in both visual and print media are also to your credit, ma'am. Ma'am, you have been practicing this noble profession with utmost sincerity. We are honored to have you with us.
Dear parents and students, during these challenging times, as a result of COVID-19, we all have been facing several difficulties. And one of the biggest problems is the exponential increase in mental health problems. While the COVID lockdown may have been effective in helping to curb the spread of COVID-19 in India, it has not, perhaps, been conducive to the emotional and mental health. Dr. Mimansa Singh is here to discuss the problems associated with mental health. Here, I would like to remind you all that this is an interactive session. Ma'am would be delighted to answer all your questions. So make sure to note down your questions and ask them in the live chat. Now, may I now please request ma'am to address the audience, please?
Thank you so much, all the young students, for that warm welcome. And it's always a pleasure to interact with students and young uh, creative minds, because if there is any change which is possible in our society which can be effective, it is through you. So, which is why we are talking about this very important subject today, mental health. And it's very important that we all, whenever there is a stigma and stereotype which is attached to anything, we try and spread as much. First, we gain knowledge and literacy about it, because I think wherever there is lack of awareness, there is a lot of stereotype and stigma that attaches to it. And mental health has been one of that subject uh, to which there has always been a lot of stigma which has been attached. And after gaining the literacy and the knowledge, the next step is to spread the right awareness. And that's exactly what we are trying to do today. Spread the awareness when it comes to mental health, because I think we all need it. We all need to answer certain questions. We all need to bust certain myths surrounding mental health. That's very, very important. So if I begin talking about, just give a little bit of statistics that, what we have been seeing and hearing about mental health for a very long time have been more to do with how people with mental illnesses are aggressive, how they are in a disheveled state, how they are incomprehensible. And that's a very, very small section of the society. There are different levels to mental health and mental illnesses when we look at. And our portrayal and our understanding of that, mostly for larger part of the society, has been that. And which is why, a lot of people, even whether it is students, whether it is parents, whether it is adults, when we talk about we're not feeling well and going to a mental health expert, there is a lot of hesitancy. So when we have any health related concern, you have a headache, you have a stomach ache, you comfortably reach out to a doctor, you talk to them, you seek treatment, you take medicines, you take rest, everybody tells you to be okay, take rest, and then you become better. But mental health, which is such an integral and important part of our life, because when you're not doing mentally fit, it impacts your work performance, it impacts your academics, it impacts your emotional well-being, it impacts your relationships, because you don't feel engaged in anything that you're doing. And anything else, whether it is your hobbies, whether it is interest, anything that you are doing gets impacted, because you don't feel motivated, you don't feel interested, you feel somewhere your moods are getting impacted. And which is why when your mental health, and it also impacts your physical health as well, because when you're feeling anxious, when you're feeling extremely sad, or any other symptoms related to mental health related problem, you also experience certain physiological changes along with it. So when you're not doing mentally well, it is impacting each and every aspect of your life, and that holds true for all of us. So it is so important that we make mental health an important and a priority in our day-to-day lives on a day-to-day basis. We're talking about this today because today is World Mental Health Day, but it is very important that we continue to talk about this in our day-to-day lives in a lot more positive manner. So larger section of the society, when I talk about, whether it is anxiety, whether it is to do with, depression, which is very, very common, it is actually high functioning people, people like you, people like me, working, going to hospitals, going to schools, going to organizations, doing our day-to-day activity, are the ones struggling with mental health related problem. Which is why it doesn't seem very visible, because we feel that, how can somebody have that when they're going to office, when they're doing everything else? But that is the fact. We are all high functioning people, but we can still struggle with some symptoms of that. The way, if you have thyroid, if you have diabetes, you still go to your work, you do everything else, but you're still struggling with diabetes and thyroid and anything else, right? It still gives you that symptom and it still impacts you in some way or the other. It's the same way. So if we actually understand it, 1 in 5 people, if we look at the statistics, 1 in 5 people once in their lifetime are diagnosed with some form of mental health related problem. So it is that common. So which is why we are looking at a larger section of the society, who is high functioning, struggling with it. Still, the treatment and the diagnosis is something that does not happen because most of us don't talk about it. And let's look at the reason why we don't talk about it. I spoke about the portrayal that has been there on media for a very long time when it comes to mental health. You know, the kind of movies that we would see, and the kind of portrayal that would happen from that, and the kind of image that it would create in our minds when we talk about mental health. The second aspect is the language. We use language, different kinds of language, words to attribute to a person who may be mentally doing not well. People with mental illness, we call them crazy, we call them pagal, we call them all of these words, retarded. These words also continue to perpetuate the stigma related to mental health, because we are characterizing people with mental illness with something or the other in a negative way. So, which is why, again, when you and I struggle with it, our immediate response is no, I am not mentally ill. And that is to do with one, the portrayal, second, the language, third is the insensitivity that we tend to show, because of which, again, the stigma happens. We tend to be very judgmental. We feel, and we often talk about how it cannot happen to you because you're such a strong individual. How can this happen to you? You're doing everything fine. Maybe it is something that you're doing to seek attention. Maybe you're just doing it because you're not doing your day-to-day routine things. If you will get into your routine, you'll be fine. Right? So all these things again perpetuate stigma, and we are being judgmental towards an individual who may be struggling with something. So what we need to understand, one, is that mental illness is not a choice. Like any other physical illness, mental illness also happens because of biological factors. There is hormonal change, there is a genetic factor that plays into it, and of course there are sometimes even psychosocial factors, which means various vectors in your life that can make you stressful. So there is a biopsychosocial factor which is playing into you not feeling mentally well. That's one thing. Second, it does not talk about your weakness or does not talk about your character deficit. It does not talk about who you are as an individual, because it's something external of you. It is something that goes out of your control. It has got nothing to do with who you are as a person. So it is very important that we do not characterize ourselves negatively when we are struggling with mental health related problem, or we recognize any of our friend, peer, colleague, family member is struggling with mental health related problem. We give them our sensitive support, and we also give ourselves that support by reaching out for help. So let's recognize what are the various factors that can happen in our lives that can make us stressful. So one is academic pressure. We all are aware about it. We get academic pressure, we feel anxious during examinations. That is one of the factors. Second, the expectations that we can feel about various things, whether it is we have it from our own selves, we have it from parents, we have it from society because of the competitiveness of the society that is there. Third, if there are any kind of disturbances that we can experience within our families, within our relationships, with our friends, conflicts that can happen. Fourth, the kind of pressure that we can feel from media. It's very, very important to also recognize that when we engage in a lot of comparisons with a lot of things that are being posted on media, it also tends to impact us, because it impacts our self-esteem, it impacts our self-belief. We are constantly thinking about the number of likes, the number of followers, and it almost makes us conform to what is being portrayed on social media. And it, in the process, makes us lose our own individuality, because we are constantly thinking he's doing this, she's doing this, and that tends to have an influence on us. So that's another thing. And also the kind of information that we gather from media. We also have to be very, very importantly, we become media literates. See where the source the information is coming from, who is it is being produced for, whether it is impacting any of my lifestyle choices, my belief systems, my emotions. I have to be also mindful about that. That's another part. And of course, in the ongoing time period, what we are also looking at, dealing with the uncertainty. We all are so used to having a structure in our day-to-day life. We all are so used to making goals, plans. This is what is going to happen towards the end of the year. I'm going to have my examinations. This is what I'm going to do next year. And right now what we are dealing with is a lot of uncertainty. We do not know how this is going to come out and what is going to happen out of this. What we are trying to learn is to learn each day as it is coming. So all of these factors can add to our stress. Now, one level of stress is that you and I can feel stressful And then we try and work around it at our own individual level. We try to make some changes in our lifestyle, we engage in our hobbies, we talk to someone, we feel better. The second level is where we recognize that it is becoming a little more overwhelming and I now need to talk to someone. I talk to my parent, I talk to my friends, colleagues, teachers, school counselor, and I say that, this is making me feel a lot more worried. It is impacting my sleep, mood, and I talk to them, and then they help me change certain vectors in my life, bring about certain changes, and I feel better. The third aspect is when I recognize I have tried to do a lot of these things, but consistently I'm having to experience these emotions that I'm feeling. So it could be what? These could be certain signs that you are overwhelmed with stress, and we all need to recognize these signs. And these are, if we are feeling persistently sad, it's been week, 10 days, it is not becoming better. We have been feeling irritable in our moods. There are a lot of variations in the moods that we are experiencing, and it can happen to anyone. It can happen to you, it can happen to a family member, adults. All of us need to know about these signs and symptoms. It can also impact our thought process. We may be thinking a lot more negatively about ourselves and things around us. We may be also feeling disturbed when it comes to our sleep, our appetite. We may begin to feel, a sense of disengagement in social interactions. So we don't feel motivated, or we don't want to talk to people, our friends, our family members. We want to stay isolated. All of the activities that we would be doing otherwise, on our day-to-day basis, we are not feeling a sense of joy, a sense of pleasure, a sense of motivation in doing all of these things. So these are, and we can also experience, like I said, certain physiological changes, which is feeling restlessness, palpitation, sometimes aches and pains, lot of fatigue. These are certain signs and symptoms we all must be aware of. When we recognize, we must reach out for help. Again, your immediate vectors to reach out for help is your parents, your friends, your school counselors and teachers that you can go and reach out to. The second uh, you know uh, round of people that you can reach out to is a helpline and a mental health expert. So you talk to your parents, you talk to your school counselor, and when they recognize that it is still troubling you, we reach out to a mental health expert. So it is very, very important that we recognize the fact that yes, stress can be overwhelming to a lot of us. Each one of us at some point in time in our lifetime can have these experiences. It is important we recognize them at an early time, try to take support as much as we can, work on it both at an individual and at the level of support, because it is very important that we build our support systems and take help for that as well. Secondly, let's also look at the aspect of how each one of us have a role to play when it comes to mental health. So if you are someone who's struggling with mental health related problem, do not suffer and struggle in silence. Speak about it, reach out for help. If you know you have a family member, a friend, a peer who's struggling with it, give them your empathetic support. Do not be judgmental. Know what exactly, how much you should be giving them the space to talk about it. Be sensitive towards them. What are the things that you should not be saying, which I gave you the example of? It cannot happen to you, just a phase, it'll pass, don't talk about it, don't think like that, right? You give them the safe space to talk, express, and again, encourage them to seek help. If you are a young member of the society, be a mental health advocate. You all have social media pages. Make sure you invest some time and energy in spreading the right awareness about mental health, because we all need to have that. So what we need to understand is that mental health, and that is also the theme of World Mental Health Day, is how can we increase our investment when it comes to mental health, because we all need it in the society, and as members of the society we all can have a role to play in this. Each one of us need to recognize what my role is and how can I make my society a lot more positive and accepting when it comes to mental health related problem. And that's what we need to begin to do each day and every day to make mental health a priority. If I talk about the ongoing time period, there is no doubt about the fact that the time period and the uncertain unpreparedness of the time period has impacted each and every one of us. Whether it is the loss that we may be experiencing of a routine, of economics, the finances, the adults are also experiencing a lot of losses over there. loss of an individual sometimes. All of these things are impacting us a lot more. What we need to recognize is that yes, there is a fear, there is an anxiety which is increased because of something which is external to us, and it is normal to feel a little more anxious in a time period like this. What we need to recognize is things that are there in our control. And the two things that are there in our control is one, how can I follow all my precautions? Not make wearing a mask on the chin a style statement, but actually following all the precautions by wearing a mask till here, because that's what exactly what is needed. Not having optimism bias that nothing is going to happen to me or somebody else and I can wear mask the way I want, but following all the precautions, using sanitizers, keeping that with us, and maintaining physical distancing, very, very important. Follow that as a responsible citizen. Also, if you think there is a possibility that you can also encourage people to follow around you, please do that. Second, when it comes to the information, always take your information from a reliable source, which is look at what is the latest information that is available on various government online sources. Do not keep on reading about the pandemic, because it is very important we adapt to the pandemic life, but we do not make pandemic our life. We have to just adjust and adapt to the new normal. And what we need to focus is that yes, we continue to plan long term on how, when things change or even in the ongoing time period, the best that I can do. But one important skill that we are learning in the ongoing time period is how to be resilient by one, living in the here and now, making my life more meaningful by even doing simple small things. All these things that we take for granted, our routine, our relationships, our simple activities that we do, whether it is music, art, reading, all of these things that we would take for granted, we are recognizing how important they actually are in having to make my mental health and mental well-being more positive. Because in a time period where I am within my home, these are the things that I can actually depend upon, boost my energy, boost my self-esteem, boost my mood, and I continue to invest in all these things. So you are becoming more resilient in a time period like this. I think it's a very, very important skill that each one of us are learning. We as adults are also learning this, because all of us tend to live either in the future or in the past. We are learning how to be in the time that we are in and how to actually learn to enjoy in the moment that we are in. That's what we are learning. And the second thing that we are learning is that resilience not only comes by investing in your own self, but also in others. So in a time where you've been asked to be physically distant, we recognize how important relationships are for us. Because when we are physically distant, we recognize we may be feeling isolated, disconnected with our friends, peers, families, and how important it is for each one of us to stay connected. So make more verbal calls, make more virtual calls. Don't replace all of your communication with text, because on text you are not able to really sense the tone, the expression, the care, the concern that an individual can show to you. So if you want to show that to someone, call them up, have more virtual calls, have more video calls. And in a time where there is technology to help us stay connected, use that as a boon. This is a time where we recognize that we cannot stay isolated as long as this is there for us to connect. So I'm opening the session to questions now. Please feel free to ask me whatever questions you have.
Thank you, ma'am, for such an insightful presentation.
Now, I would request the audience to to begin the live session of question answers. Lakshya, would you like to take the first question?
Yes, of course, Dipansha. First question on screen is from a concerned parent who is wishing to know the signs and symptoms of anxiety in a child. A very relevant question indeed. Ma'am, question for
Signs
you.
of anxiety in a child. So one, we need to recognize that, for example, if there is before examination, one is feeling a little anxious, that is normal. But when does anxiety become into an anxiety which is actually an anxiety illness? That happens when you begin to have thoughts of worry and concern, you become fearful about small things around you. You begin to worry and have those thoughts about everything and anything that you're doing. So whether it is your examination, whether it is you studying, whether it is you going out, you begin to have these thoughts that something bad is going to happen. Second, you can also have palpitations. You can have this increased, shortness of breath sometimes. You can also have hot and cold sweat sometimes. You can also have aches and pains. A child can also talk about, how they are having frequent aches and pains with, aches and pains moving in some part of the body or the other. It's not a consistent one that happens on one part of the body, but, it can happen sometimes headache, sometimes stomach ache, sometimes backache, any of those things. Difficulty in sleeping as well. Changes in the appetite, either eating too less, eating too more, too much. These can also be certain signs and symptoms. In anxiety, you particularly avoid things that you are actually fearing. So if you have an examination and you're extremely anxious, you would want to avoid the examination. You will do it, but then again, there could be a lot of thoughts that you would have. You would continue to keep talking about it. Even sometimes, particularly when it comes to examinations, you would also see a child not moving out of the desk because they're so anxious. They would lose out on something that morning till evening, continuously sitting on the desk. And then, of course, sometimes having blackouts during examinations, not being able to perform to their optimum level. In other, apart from examinations, these are the signs and symptoms again, where they may talk about thoughts of worry and concern to small things.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing about symptoms and signals of anxiety with us. It's time to take the next question. Let me read the question for you, ma'am. It seems it is from one of our students. He or she says, I quote, I learned for my test seriously and I'm confident to repeat the answer verbally. But when I see the question paper, it gets completely washed off. This is the reason for my poor performance in academics. Can you suggest a solution for the same,
It is
ma'am?
very important.
I unquote.
Sorry.
Ma'am, ma'am, I'm sure many more students would like to know the solution to this
So it
problem.
is very important that we
Please,
recognize
ma'am.
that examinations are not a monster. It has become into and turned into one, more so because the moment, you know, the focus one is of course on boards, 10th, 12th, and the talking about 10th and 12th begins as early as 8th class, 9th class, and each time you're coming, more and more people continue to talk about how board exams are coming. So I think it's not just, each one of us again are contributing on how to make this into a monster. What we need to really recognize is that examination is a skill. This is just one part of your life where you are being tested. Life is a longitudinal axis. You are going to have many more examinations and many more challenges in your day-to-day life. What you need to see examinations is just another life skill where you are being just tested in a situation where you're being evaluated on what you've learned. That's the only way to look at it. And the other way to, learn to take it as a skill is, how can I enjoy my testing period? Like I said, life is going to give you many other tests. So if we begin to feel scared and fearful of this one test in our life, then it's the same pattern we will continue to follow in various other tests in our life. So we need to learn to enjoy this period. So when you're learning and you're doing your academics, you're preparing for your examinations, have other things also going on at that point in time. Don't just stop everything else and just sit down to just keep on studying day and night. You need to learn to balance your examination like any other thing. Have that work life balance even during your examinations. So go out, play a sport, talk to your friends, do your hobbies, what you would do otherwise as well. We have to look at examinations as any other skill and balance it as a work life balance even during that period as well. And that's what I would encourage every student to do, because what you're learning right now and what you're going to learn in life when you actually go on the field, whatever career paths you take, a lot of learning is actually going to happen through experience. Right now you're just being given a simulated time period, a simulated way to being tested, on what you've learned. Once you go on the field, there will be no simulation. It is just going to be a testing field, and you will have to learn to enjoy it and take every challenge which is coming. So if you have any, for students who are who feel a lot of anxiety before examinations, give you some self tests, create similar kind of simulation within your home setting, wear your school uniform, give yourself 3 hours to do it. It helps you again feel less anxious because it prepares you more and more for a testing period. So when you do that, you learn to manage your anxiety a lot better. Second, like I said, have a work life balance even during examination period. Give yourself breaks, do everything else that you would do on your day to day basis. Don't just focus just on academics and continue to keep doing that morning till evening. It is very important that we learn to take that pressure off.
I hope you all are satisfied with the answer. I suggest you seriously work on it to improve your academic performance. Dipansha, why don't you take the next question?
Thank you, Lakshay. Ma'am, many people are interested in knowing why do people suffer from depression or mental health issues? Like, what is the exact reason for them to be suffering from mental health issues?
Like I said, there are two factors to it. One is we have to look at the biopsychosocial model, which means there is biological factor which is attached to it. Like you have thyroid, diabetes, any other illness where there are hormonal changes which are taking place. Even in depression and mental illnesses, there are hormonal changes that take place. There are also sometimes genetics that come into play. And the other aspect is the psychosocial factor that I talk about, various vectors in our life, whether it is any kind of a disturbance, any kind of a loss, any kind of stress factor that can actually impact our day-to-day life, and which is why this can happen. But particularly, even if those stress factors are not there, one can still have any form of mental illness, particularly because of the biological factor to it. So there is a very strong biological factor. But if I talk about the treatment part, one has to also look at that it is not necessary, and this is busting one of the myths, it is not necessary that everyone is put on medications. We tend to fear a lot more when we go to a psychiatrist that if I have some problem, I will be put on medications. It does not work like that. It depends upon the intensity of what you are struggling with. Based on that, you're put on medications, you're put on psychotherapy, and an effective treatment is where, based on the problem, both are used, or sometimes only with some medications it becomes better, or sometimes medications are not given. Only with psychotherapy, with the psychologist, you work on that and you become fine.
Thank you, ma'am. I believe your answer cleared up many doubts regarding mental health issues.
Excuse me, Dipansha. Let me take the next question. Ma'am, it seems the next question is from a student of board class. The question is, I quote, "We are all pressurized because of the attitude of our parents and teachers who keep on reminding us of board examinations. This is very frustrating, ma'am. How do we manage this pressure? I unquote. Ma'am, in addition to this, I would also like to add that we already have a lot of peer pressure due to the stiff competition. Please, ma'am.
So my answer I will take from the ongoing time period that we are in. We are all scared of the examinations, and we take that pressure more to do because we focus so much on the outcome. Marks are important, certainly, because it also helps us define where we are going ahead in life. But what we need to really focus on, not the outcome, and that is for all of us, whether as students, as teachers, as parents, as educators, the idea is to focus more on the process. What you're doing, the effort that you're making in your examinations, in your learning. And if you actually look at the ongoing time period that we are in, where there is so much uncertainty, we cannot really define what is the outcome of the ongoing situation. So outcomes are never in our hands. What is in our hands is the process of making the effort. And that's exactly what we need to enjoy. We all have studied so much, we still are trying to find the answers to what is going to happen to the time that we are in. Nobody has the answer to that. What we learn from this is that more than focusing on the outcome, we focus on the process of how you study, how you enjoy your studying, how you enjoy your learning, the kind of strategies, the kind of efforts that you make over there. You may not get good marks, good grades, but that is not the end of your life. If I talk about my example, I had always been an average scorer. But one thing that I continue to invest in was my hobbies, my extracurriculars. And I think that always gave me such a boost in my self confidence, in my self esteem. And that has continued to play a huge role in my life, in becoming who I am and who I have been. Because that would always give me a sense of self esteem, boosting my energy, letting me not compare myself to other friends who would be academically so bright and always scoring in the top. So you have to learn to balance life in that sense. What you're scoring right now does not define who you would be in future. It is absolutely not related. You just continue to enjoy the process, continue to focus on your efforts. That is going to pay for you in your lifetime. So, whatever you do, ensure you enjoy that. That is what is more important. If you'll enjoy it, you will continue to feel passionate about it. You will continue to keep on investing about it. You will think in different ways. What can I do to, sort of increase my learning, spread that, what I have learned, give it to others as well. That's the approach that we need to take from the education, from learning, all of those things.
Guys, I hope you got the answer.
Ma'am, please allow me to ask you the next question, which probably a lot of other students would like to ask. I'm probably being the representative. Ma'am, while many students are very confident on the stage, but many more students are hesitant and reluctant to come on the stage and face the audience, which is what we call stage fright. What will you suggest to overcome this issue?
Yes, it is normal for one to have anxiety when it comes to public speaking, going on stage. What you need to do is begin to practice it. Do it first with small segment of people. Do it first amongst your friends, among just your family. Then slowly get yourself out on the stage. What you also need to recognize is that even in the earlier, every time you go on the stage, you may still have a little bit of anxiety before you actually begin to perform. All you have to do is just continue to have a lot of practice. Think less, perform more. Do that. And before that, like I said, systematically, you continue to practice in small group, then a little larger group, then a little larger group, and then you go on the stage to do it. One or two bad performance, like I said, again, does not define. It's absolutely okay to not go just completely to your potential in the first few performances, but eventually you would. The key is to not stop it just because you had one bad performance, two bad performance, three bad performance. You will perhaps have 10 bad performances and the 11th one is going to be good. And if you continue to keep doing that, you will recognize, you will almost see that change in your own self, in your own confidence to be able to do that. And like I said, it's absolutely normal. Even right now, when I sometimes go on, these sessions, before that, sometimes I can also have that slight palpitation, and it's absolutely normal. The moment you start talking, it just vanishes away. So keep on practicing and keep on doing it.
Thank you so much, ma'am. This answer probably put a lot of students at ease. The next question on the screen is from a fellow student. The question reads as, I quote, I am tagged as a complete introvert. Although I try my best, I find it hard to socialize with other people. Is there anything I can do about this issue, ma'am?
There is nothing wrong in being an introvert. We all have our own temperaments and personality styles. It does not define in any which way that you're less as compared to any of your other friends. Maybe perhaps you feel a little more confident and comfortable talking in small groups. Do that. That's absolutely okay. In larger groups, you can just be a participate. You can just participate in the way of just listening, observing, and whenever you feel that maybe there is something that you can contribute, even if it is less, that's absolutely okay. But like I said, what is most important in all these questions that I'm answering is continue to have self-belief in yourself. That is very, very important. Spend some time to increase your awareness about your own strengths, about your own skills. Many times we are not even aware of these things. So, sit down with yourself to see what are my characteristic strengths, what are my virtues, what are my skills and abilities. We also tend to take a lot of things granted about our own selves. So, if somebody says, oh, you're a kind person, you're an empathetic person, you're so caring, we tend to take it for granted. What is so big about it? But in today's life, in today's time, I think that's a big, big virtue that one can have, to be kind, to be cared, to be empathetic, to be, compassionate. So recognize these strengths in you, whether you're a patient individual, whether you're a good listener, whether you are, every small thing counts, because all of these things, pay in your life, in whatever career path, in whether in relationships, work, all of these things are very, very important because they define who you are. So invest in building your self-awareness. Recognize, make a list of your characteristic strengths, your virtues, and your skills. Skills could be whether you have resilient skills, whether you have good writing skills, whether you have good speaking skills, whether you have good creative skills. Focus on your skills as well. If you're unable to make that list for yourself and you're focusing more and more on the limitations, this means you are struggling with some low self esteem. Take help from your parents, take help from your friends, take help from your teachers to make that, complete that list, because sometimes you may not be able to see that from the dark lens that you see yourself, but somebody else can actually help you see you yourself in a much better lens. So take that help, and do not believe that somebody is saying this just to do some service to you by saying and talking something good about you. That's not true. Your friends, your peers, your friends are your immediate mirrors, and if they are talking and saying something good about you, you have to absorb it, believe it, and go ahead from there.
Thank you, ma'am.
Moving on to next question. The next question says, my mother is suffering from kidney problem. During this lockdown, she has just confined herself to a room and does not talk to anyone. Can you please suggest what should we do? Yes, ma'am.
I think as family members, it is important that we continue to provide them support. Ask them in what way she would like to be helped. When you are struggling with physical health related concerns, one can also begin to have an impact on one's own emotional well-being as well. It can also impact one psychologically as well. You may feel demotivated sometimes. You may sometimes have certain days may be good, certain days may be bad, because you are struggling with physical health related concern. So as a family, you just come together, you support them, you ask them that in which other way that she can be best supported. Encourage her to sometimes even talk about what she may be feeling, but don't be pushy. I think it's very important to have that fine balance by giving the individual who is struggling with anything for that matter that space that they need, and at the same time very softly, calmly, nudgingly sometimes telling them that you are always there to hear them out, you're always there to listen to them. And if they need any support, to talk to anybody else, a mental health expert, a third person who is an absolutely non-judgmental person. Because sometimes as family members, we don't talk about things, we believe that we may be burdening our own family people with whatever we are experiencing and thinking, and which is where a third person who is an expert, who is actually there to listen to you, is somewhere comes into play. So it is absolutely okay to go talk to a mental health expert if you're ever feeling that you're struggling with something emotionally, psychologically, mentally. That's what their work is. That's what our work is. So be open to seeking help. That's what is important.
Thank you, ma'am. I hope she gets well soon.
Ma'am, the next question reads as, I quote, my brother is very restless. It's difficult to control him sometimes. He gets very aggressive. What should be done in this situation?
So one, I think what we need to recognize is what are the points, triggers for him to get angry. Help him also recognize those triggers. Work with him around those aspects. Sometimes when we are struggling with anger management issues, we are perhaps not having the skills on how to manage my emotions. So wherever you can help him, work through with him on those aspects. If you still feel that and your family members or you are unable to do that, then of course, like I said, a mental health expert would be able to help you with that. But simple things that are important and that can help an individual or anyone, whether a young child or you or me, an adult, anyone, when you are feeling that extremely emotionally overwhelmed at that point in time, whether it is anger or any other emotion, is first to recognize that I am feeling this way. It has to be recognized that this is a problem. You talk about the triggers that may actually be happening, because when you don't recognize this is a problem, anybody, whoever comes to you, you are going to just negate it. So help that person recognize that this is a problem, how it is impacting them and everybody around them. What do we think we can do about this? And this approach has to be very non-judgmental. We tend to be defensive the moment you say your problem and how you do and how it impacts. The moment it becomes you, the same way, the person will become defensive. So it's very important that we say we're going to work together on this. Yes, you may sometimes be struggling with anger management issues. Let's see what skills we can work on this. Then you can start with something like, the moment you recognize that there is anger which is coming up, you feel a lump in your throat, you feel your muscles getting contracted. This is the way you increase your awareness that you're feeling angry. The moment you recognize that, go away from the situation, wash your face, have a glass of cold water, do some deep breathing exercises, take a stroll, go around. Once you feel a little calmer, and keep on doing that. When you feel a little calmer, then let's come back to the situation and talk about the conflict in a much more rational, communicative way. Because when we are emotionally overwhelmed, rational does not come into place. So first, it is important we calm ourselves, then we talk about that issue. For parents, it's very important to model the same thing, because when children tend to act in an angry way, sometimes as parents we talk about stay calm in the same anger, in the same high pitch, in the same high tone. So the message which is going is a lot more contradictory. We are saying to stay calm, but we are saying it in a loud voice again. So parents have to stay calm, they have to be more patient and talk about in a firm, calm voice that how they need to lower the tone. The child needs to lower the tone. The child needs to first, take care of their emotion, feel a little better, help them to do that, and then come back to the problem which was there at hand to talk about it.
Thank you so much for that informative answer, ma'am.
Ma'am, the next question is from a sports person. The question reads as, Ma'am, I play cricket very well, but whenever I'm not able to score well, I get very depressed. How do I handle it? Yes, ma'am.
When you're not able to score well, like I said again, that your marks don't define you. One bad examination is fine. Recognize where do you think you may have struggled in the effort strategy, wherever in the subject that you require a little bit of more improvement. Just take this as a self-reflective exercise. Work on that part. Similarly, if you also look at any one subject, it's not necessary that we are bad in the entire subject, but we begin to believe like that. So for example, in maths or in science, you may have one aspect of it, one particular part of it, where you may be struggling. So when you talk to yourself, your self-talk should be, I am struggling with this aspect of my maths, maybe geometry or algebra, and I am perhaps struggling with this part of science, maybe some part of physics, but overall, I am doing good. That is the way you have to look at it. Rather than generalizing in your mind, I am bad at maths, I'm bad at science, you have to be more specific where you're struggling, so that you don't begin to develop fear of that subject. And wherever you're struggling, work on that with your teacher.
Thank you, ma'am. I hope he or she performs well in both academics and in sports.
The next question is a very relatable question. The person asks, how can we stop ourselves from being bothered about Facebook or WhatsApp, such as the remarks or likes that we receive from social media?
I already spoke about it. And that is because our attention goes more and more on the number of likes. And that happens when we are increasing more and more in the comparative analysis of us as an individual with anybody else. I think in today's time where social media is here to stay, is very, very important that we become media literates and we learn to create that boundary for ourselves where we don't let media interfere in every aspect of our life, but we create that balance where we use media a lot more positively. You use it to spread positivity, use it to stay connected with people, you use it to create advocacy about anything, but don't focus too much on how a friend is tagging me, how a friend is not tagging me. We need to stop the glamorization and bust that particular kind of a glamorized approach in media. Friends have started tagging oneself and doing shout outs on social media on and one person feels I am not tagged, and that begins to create a sense of insecurity. Your meaningful relationships are the ones who are there on your fingers that you can count. And if you want to make someone special, you don't need to do a shout out on any kind of Instagram or on Facebook or on WhatsApp, any of those things. You call up that person individually, you make that effort to convey that to the person. That's how you maintain relationships. On a big platform, it's not needed. What you do is more personalized, and that has more meaning, and those are your actually relationships. So that's how you have to look at it. Don't compare. Like I said, we all have skills, strengths in us. The moment you begin to do comparisons and you let people influence you, you are going to lose your own sense of individuality. Stay connected with who you are. That's very, very important. And be a positive influence yourself. Don't let people influence you. You have an influence that you can create on people around you by staying positive, by being strong, by being resilient in that sense. And even in sports, to add to my earlier question, sports is a place where you actually learn how to not let failure impact you, because it's a game. Sports actually teaches you that outcome does not matter. Losing and winning is just a game. What really matters is what you do on those particular time, whether it is your 90 minutes, whether it is your half an hour, how you enjoy that process. Deal it with a sense of your competitiveness, your energy, your passion, your focus, your motivation. That process matters the most. Outcome will never be in your hand. So that's what sports basically teaches you, the spirit of winning and losing, and yet continuing to play the game. So continue to have that with you.
Thank you, ma'am. I hope the person who asked this question got a more detailed answer.
Ma'am, the next question is, I think, very common, and every fifth person has this. The question is, I try very hard that I look good every time. I care a lot what others think about me. Is it healthy?
Like I said, no. And like I said, continue to have belief in you. I'll give you a small story, which my grandfather had shared with me once when I was young. And it's a story which is also there in Oriental Stories, a book which is there over. You can always read it when it's an Oriental story of psychotherapy, but the book is very nice in that sense, and we learn a lot through stories. So the story goes this way: that a father and a son, they go to a village to buy a donkey. While they were coming back, they both were just walking and the donkey was walking along, and a passerby said that how stupid, you have a donkey and you both are walking. So the father said to the son, go sit on the donkey. The other passerby came after some time and he said, my God, how unkind, and how insensitive. The father is walking and the son is sitting on the donkey. So the son got down and told the father to sit. Then again, another passerby went and he said, my God, the father is having more, he's more caring about himself and not about the son. The son is walking. So then they said, let's both sit on it. They both sit on it. Then other passerby said, poor donkey. Then what the father and son did, they tried to take the donkey on their head. So what I'm trying to say is there are going to be a lot of people who are going to continue to bray around you. Don't let that impact you, influence you. You need to have a strong belief system about yourself with the values and the culture that your family puts in you. That is what is more important. If you don't have that, then people, whatever they're going to say, there are going to be always a lot of voices, a lot of judgments that are going to keep on coming around, and we are going to keep on feeling influenced by it. So don't let that happen.
Thank you, ma'am, for the wonderful story and the answer.
The next question is being asked from 2-3 people. I quote, one second, ma'am, just 1 second. I'm a voracious reader. Could reading books for 10 to 15 hours cause mental health issues?
Well, it's always important to take breaks, but no, there is no harm in reading. But at the same time, what you have to learn is to balance. So if just continuously reading is perhaps making you ignore any other aspect of your life, that is not healthy. Anything in overly access in an excessive way where you are not being able to balance anything else is something that needs to be looked at. So just balance it, but as long as you enjoy reading, that's good. I can't say that reading for so many hours is going to cause you any kind of mental health related problem. But yes, if you don't exercise, if you don't invest in other things that can give you break, can make you feel relaxed and other things, then it can just make you feel a little stressed. So just have balance in life. Whatever you do, whether it is sports, reading, anything that you do, have a balance. It's important.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, I'm sorry I'm asking you a personal question. What made you pursue this as your career?
Right. So, like any other student, I was confused myself after 12th. What should I take? In fact, for a lot of you to know, I actually had commerce in my 12th. And it's when I had, a very detailed conversation with my parents, and they suggested that perhaps you may like the subject. That's when I began. And in fact, I was a very creative person, and I wanted to go into arts and creative side. But then this is where I pursued, and I got admission. And in my third year of bachelor's, when I did counseling, I really liked the subject, and from there on I just went on ahead. I did my master's and I did my MPhil, and I've been just passionate about the subject since then.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing such information.
The next question is from a parent. They ask, my son is very fond of reading. Could you suggest some books to build his mental ability?
Anything. Reading is something that is to be enjoyed. Don't make that into another subject. I would recommend whatever he enjoys, try and look and tap on his interest level, ask him what he enjoys, give him books from various different genres, whether it is fiction, non-fiction, and then see where his interest lies, and he can just choose whatever he likes. It has to be something that he enjoys. So just expose him to different kind of reading material, and whatever he likes, please continue to encourage him to do that.
Thank you, ma'am. I hope you got the answer.
Ma'am, the next question is related to me also. Sometimes I also stumble upon this question. The question is reading better or listening to audiobooks? As we are already spending a lot of time online.
Depends upon what you find comfortable. I do feel that reading in any case should be done in any case, because of course, reading is also a skill, and that in itself as a skill, you learn a lot of things. But in today's time where we have the convenience of audiobooks, you can use that as well. So use a mix of both the things. Don't just choose one over the other. It's important that we continue to also do reading, because reading, again, it's about paying attention, learning a lot of things through this art of reading things. And of course, in a time that we are in right now, where we have the luxury of having audiobooks, where we can just do something and just listen to it. We are traveling, we can listen to it, use that as well.
Thank you, ma'am. I will certainly remember this.
Plus, I also feel we all need to also know how we learn better. For some people, when they read, learn better. For some people, when they listen, they learn better. So, you can just use it in that space as well, by recognizing, how better you learn in what way.
Thank you, ma'am. The next question reads as, after 12th, students have gotten lethargic due to delay in admissions and entrance exams. How to motivate them to utilize their time productively on their own?
So I think what is important is that you continue to encourage them to pursue their hobbies. That's very important. Help them have a flexible schedule. Don't nag about things. Do this, do that. Just encourage. As parents, it's important that we be facilitators. Encourage them to do different things, newer things. Try and divert their energies and into something more creative. You can sometimes help them initiate something, and then just let them pursue and take on that particular aspect, but anything small that they do is important. And as family, you can have certain things that you can do together. You can come together and do at the same time some yoga, some gymming, some kind of exercises, Zumba, whatever, Zumba, whatever you can do as form of physical exercise. Sometimes we tell children to do it, we don't do it ourselves, and then it does not turn into an activity. So do it as a family ritual, where you all come together in evening, do something together to have that sense of positivity, spirit, playfulness, and we do something together in that aspect. Okay,
Thank you, ma'am.
okay, this is the last question because I have my another session at 11. So I'm sorry, I'll have to take leave very quickly. So if we can wind this up, that will be great. Thank you so much.
Okay, ma'am.
So here we wrap up the question and answer session.
Thank you, ma'am, for gracing your virtual presence and sharing such valuable information with all of us. We truly gained an experience that will last with us. May I now request Dr. Upma Arora, our principal, to propose a vote of thanks. Ma'am, you're muted.
Yes. Am I audible now? Right.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
thank you, Mimansa. It was a lovely and great session. Our parents, our children have really benefited, and our teachers are also viewing your session. There are many problems that we face at times, whether it be parents, children, but ultimately at the end of the day, we want our children to be groomed wherever the problem is, because it is like I also have attended very few sessions of Mr. S. Ravindran. You must be knowing, as he is a great psychologist, and so it is lovely to know these views that it is not the children's mistake whenever they have some kind of learning disability. These are very very small behavioral issues which can be sorted out. So our children, if and parents, if they are aware with the psychologists like you and the counselors like you, perfectly our children will definitely be benefited. So I request through this medium, our parents also, wherever you have some kind of problem, sometimes you feel the child is not behaving in particular manner, so we have solutions through everything. Likewise, several questions were taken up by our children, and ma'am very frantically answered all of these questions. See, there is a solution if you locate your problem, if you try to rule out your problem. Yes, there is definitely a solution, and it was a great session. Ma'am was answering it so very well, as if it was not a problem. At times it becomes very heavy on the parent side and parents mind also. So if these sessions keep on, and the counselors like Mimansa ma'am are there to guide us and be with us, definitely for sure we'll come out of these very little behavioral issues, and our children will definitely come in flying colors. Thank you, Mimansa. It was a lovely, great, and very, very informative session. And may God give you strength to sort out all these problems of our younger generation who are really fighting with these day-to-day problems, and with these they will definitely come out with flying colors. And it is a very noble profession that you are doing, and it is great. Thank you very much, Mimansa, and we are benefited. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Arora. It was lovely interacting with all the young students and the three wonderful students who moderated the session. Thank you so much for your support.
God bless you.
Thank you, ma'am.
God bless you, children. It was great session. Yeah.